the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe. You are listening to Talk of the Night. And now, your host, Paranormal Phil. Thank you, and good evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the world, around the globe, or even in your own backyard. I am Paranormal Phil, and later on in the show tonight, we're going to be joined by my guest, Corbie Mitleid, and we're going to be talking about the psychic yellow brick road and making sure we don't get lost on the path to finding it. But first, up on the Talk of the Night website, talkofthenight.com, under Story of the Day, Psychic Conman Scams Loved Ones. Psychic Conman M. Lamar Keene, a Tampa-based medium in the 60s and 70s, impersonated a dead teenager and asked the mother to donate thousands of dollars to the church. Keene would use a trance-like state to make his victims believe he was channeling the dead. However, one day, the mother asked the son to provide a secret name for her to prove he was really there while in their home. Keene stumped, he faked a headache while pretending to rest in the mother's bedroom. He searched her bedroom and her belongings. He found a name in the family Bible and used it to get away with the scam. Of course, you can read more of that up on the Talk of the Night website under Story of the Day. There's a link there. It'll take you to the full story, and you can check it out. All right, so tonight we're joined by my guest, Corbie Mitleid. She has been a mystic on the mystic's path for almost 50 years, meeting challenges, always questioning, leading the examined life. This road has illuminated an essential cosmic truth. God gives all of us what we need for a life filled with miracles and joy. And as long as our hearts are open, whole, and aligned, our source energy, anything is possible. And never hurts to bring laughter on to the path with you. If she can share that blessing with you, she feels she's doing the right thing. Corbie is a psychic channel and medium reading since has been, I read it right, I was trying to improvise, reading since 1973. She travels coast to coast and into Canada as a full-time intuitive counselor, appeared frequently on radio and television, and is an inspirational teacher and facilitator. She is a featured channel in Robert Swartz's breakthrough series, Your Soul's Plan, Your Soul's Gift, and Your Soul's Love, and herself, the author of Clean Out of the Life Closet, The Psychic Yellow Brick Road, and you got The Magic Who Needs a Genie. Corbie's certifications and affiliations include being a certified tarot master, a member of the American Tarot Association and the Tarot Guild, and ordained minister of the Sanctuary of the Beloved Order of the, I don't want to mispronounce that name, but I'll get her to pronounce it. Her specific skills include tarot and oracle divination, deck readings, spiritual intuitive counseling, past life retrieval and analysis, mediumship, and spirit guide conference, including speaking with one's soul or higher self. So please welcome my guest, Corbie Mitleid, to the show. Hello, Corbie.
Hi.
Oh,
yes, right here. Good to talk to you.
Wanted to make sure I didn't lose you again.
I wasn't sure. Some people have like a 7-second delay or something, so I wasn't sure if we were dealing with that. So, how are you down in Texas with the tornadoes, my friend?
I love Texas, even when there's tornadic activity.
Better you than me. I'll take the blizzards we get here in upstate New York. That's a lot more my speed.
I can't do cold. I was born and raised in Southern California, and I'm used to the heat. I'm used to like 120 degrees in the shade in the summer.
Yeah, yeah, probably being up here, you get really, really freaked out. I mean, 35 inches, 40 inches of snow on the ground in one storm. That's normal for us.
Yeah, the normal, well, 2 years ago we had that big ice storm down here in Texas, and people didn't know what to do. People lost power. Luckily, I didn't, because my apartment was on the hospital's electrical grid, so we got lucky there, but we still lost water because of pipes freezing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was dying there. I was like, I hate going outside for anything. But all right, so let's tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Probably what you're looking for is what I call the 30-second elevator speech. Mm-hmm. Been doing this work since I was 18. I'm 67. I started getting interested when I was 9. I read a book called The Witch Family, and I thought, wow, there's magic in the world. I wanted to go find it. Mm-hmm. Now, fast forward to 1973, when I was working part-time at Spencer Gifts, high school student. They had the James Bond 007 Terror deck, and I bought it because we were all hippies then. You had your fringe jacket and your elephant tail bottoms in your deck. Now, 5 years later, everybody else moved on to roller skates and disco balls. I was still reading with the cards because I found it fascinating. So for 20 years, I read for fun, making sure that I could keep the messages clear and I would not let my ego get in the way. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, in the early 90s, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people with no training. And that's kind of when the universe handed me my draft notice and said, hello, you're working for us. Yeah. So I did it part-time. I had a very checkered career: actress, author, inspirational speaker, writer for a graphic novel series, legal assistant, video producer, executive recruiter, but always the psychic work on the side. Mm-hmm. Till 9/11, when my husband and I watched the towers burn, and I turned to him and I said, I have got to do this work full-time. People need to know there are other answers out there. And he just looked at me and said, well, I believe in you, go do it. So for a year, I still did 70 hours a week corporate, did the psychic work evenings and weekends. And after a year, when I was sure I could make a living at it, I turned my back on corporate, and I have never looked back. It's been 20 years. I still work 6 days a week and read 14 hours a day, read about 1,000 people a year, and still I get to get up every morning. I don't have to get up every morning. This is the work I've been waiting for all my life.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know the feeling. I've had my gifts since I was 5 years old. At least that's the earliest I can remember, and everything like that. But I do every once in a while do readings to help people, but I don't really do it that often just because I got too many other things that I'm working on. So I don't really have the time to do it anymore. But I'll still help out now. I do more of like cleansing homes for of darker entities and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's a very specialized kind of work. My buddy Farkas does that up here. But you see, that's the thing. People think all psychics do everything. Yeah. Well, you don't expect a doctor to have a specialty in everything.
Yeah.
When Spirit taps you and says, you're drafted, it goes rifling through your internal file cabinet to find out what would you be good at. Mm. Well, since words are my drug of choice and I love telling stories, that's why the cards work for me. Mm. But I also have been a history freak since I was a little kid in single digits. And that is what makes me very good at past life retrieval, because I can see a picture and I get all of the historical nuance. And if you don't know the history, you may say that's old-fashioned. If you do know the history like I do, you can and look at something and pull things out and say that's Berlin in 1911. Now, which one's going to give your client more information? Someone who can give the details.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I've also done kind of almost like premonitions and stuff like that. I was, when Katrina hit and everything like that, I was out in California living, and I was watching on TV. I was working at a Western wear store, and everybody's gathered around because it was kind of dead. And this was before it even hit the east coast of Florida. And I looked on a map, and I said, well, they kind of had the idea of where the path was going like they usually do. But I looked at the area, I looked on a map, and I pointed at a spot on the map. And I said, that's exactly where the eye of the storm is going to hit before it even hit the east coast of Florida. Sure enough, that's exactly where the eye of the storm hit.
Wow. Did you know anybody there? Did you have to get them out and safe?
No, because nobody believed me. I mean, they did afterwards, but I mean, it's like, really? Come on, I'm telling you the truth. I'm showing you that this is where it's going to hit and everything. Because I mean, I just get things like that quite often. Like, I'll give you another example. I lived not too far from where the Manson murders happened, probably about, I want to say about 60 miles to the east. And the guy that lives in the house, he's been on many paranormal TV shows. He lives 150 feet away from where the Manson murders happened. Well, my friend wanted to take me there to do an investigation and everything like that. And he had known David Ullman and everything like that. So he's like, come along, because I've worked with him and his team before on doing cleansing. And I said, okay, I would love to check it out. And because being big into the paranormal. And he took me out there. I said, I don't want to know anything of the location other than the murders happened 150 feet down the drive, because I don't want my mind being corrupted as I'm going there and hearing all this stuff and then having it actually corrupt my mind and thinking something else. So I was like, all I want to know is the murders happened down the drive. I didn't even want to know how they happened. And we're driving along on the freeway, the 60 freeway out there, and we're, I want to say, about 40 miles away. My friend's driving, I'm in the passenger seat, and I pulled up the map just to make sure that we didn't get lost and everything like that, because it had been the first time going out there. And I pulled up Google Earth, and I was like, let me look and see, make sure how to get up to that house and everything like that, because I don't want us making a wrong turn or anything like that and being late. And I looked at the map, and I pointed at a spot on the map right next to David Ullman's house, and I said, right there, there's a portal to the spirit world. We get there, because my friend was like, don't show me, I can't look, we're driving 80 miles on the freeway, or 80 miles per hour on the freeway. So I was like, okay, I'll tell you about it, but we'll talk about it when we get there. So we get there, and David Ullman comes out of his house, and my friend goes, tell him what you told me on the drive here. So I went to the spot that I pointed out on the map, again, not knowing anything of the location, and I said, right here is where I believe there is a portal to opening to the spirit world. And David Ullman had this shocked look in his face because, again, I knew nothing of the location. And even I think my friend didn't know this, but where I was standing when his house was being built, a 5-gallon bucket of water tipped uphill, which is impossible. So,
it's impossible only if you discount spirit.
Yeah. But, I mean, it just, I pointed out the exact spot, to the T without knowing anything. So, I've had, like I said, I've had this ability since I was 5 years old. And, of course, I got many different ways of explaining the ability, but we'll get into that later. But I want to talk about you and your stuff rather than me. But So you mentioned earlier, and when talking about yourself, how you kind of got started. But when did you first recognize your psychic abilities?
I knew something was going on when I was a kid, but, it is not in my family. In fact, to this day, members of my family will not even admit what I do. They say I'm a motivational speaker, and they don't want to tell their friends that, their relation is a psychic. So it was never anything that was supported when I was a kid. But I always knew there were other people out there. I had a wild imagination, which I now know was probably my guide. And interestingly, what happened to me, now this is anecdotal evidence. They've never done a study. But most of us that have these intuitive abilities got a hit upside the head when we were kids. Now, with me, I was 4 years old and sliding down Kramer Hill in Camden, New Jersey, back before Camden was a horror show. And I was headed for a concrete bench. Nobody had taught me how to roll off the sled. So my forehead went slamming into this concrete bench coming down the hill on a sled. Bam! And, everybody was panicking, and, oh, my God, she's going to be dead. Well, it didn't even crack my skull. It was thick. But where did it hit? Slammed the forehead right where your third eye is. And there are more people that I know, they have fallen out of trees, they've been in accidents, but their head gets hit. And after that, it is as if that opens a door.
Well, see, like me, I think the earliest accident I've had like that was when I was in first grade. So it was before I saw my first spirit, before I was even in the first grade. I wasn't even in kindergarten when I saw it. I think I was just about to enter kindergarten. And so, but my mom had that ability to see the spirit world. So she's like, she validated that experience.
See, you're lucky. You were someone who was born into a family that would support it. Those of us who kind of had to find it on our own, sometimes it did take the club upside the head for everything to shake loose and the barriers to come down.
Yeah. Now, see, like me, when I explained the ability to see and communicate with spirits, I think it was probably about 10 years ago, I coined the term the Santa Claus effect. And the way I explain it is everybody has that ability to see the spirit world or communicate with them. And it's a lot of times lost because when we're young, and for anybody that's got little kids, have them tune away. I don't want to destroy their reality. But anyways, the way I explain it is when we're young, we're told Santa Claus is real. When we grow older, as we grow older, we're told that he's not real. Well, the same thing with the spirit world and everything like that, the other dimensions, whatever you want to call it. And when we're young, our minds are not corrupted by the everyday world. And that's why you see a lot of young toddlers, babies, staring off into the distance or talking to somebody that's not there. And nobody really understands that. Same with animals, that they knows they can see the spirit world without it. But as we grow older, a lot of our parents tell us that it's our imagination, it's not real. And that ability gets pushed from our conscious mind up at the front, the third eye, all the way deep into our deepest subconscious. And now that ability is still there, but it's locked away, and people forget all about it because they were not told that it's fine to see the spirits. It's fine to communicate with them.
That's right. Now, me, I was always a rebel in my family. Everybody in my family was medical. And me, I hated blood. But also, I was a theater major. I was a writer. I mean, I could have stood on the dining room table and studied Shakespeare and they wouldn't have seen me. So, in that sense, I had the luxury of looking on my own. I knew that whatever I was doing, they would tell me I was wrong anyway, so I just didn't care. I went looking.
Yeah, and that's probably the easiest way to find it is just go out and search it. All right. So, I want to ask you, what is your, now speaking about what I explained with the Santa Claus effect and everything like that, what is your take on how people, let's see how to put this, how people can open their psychic eye, their third eye?
Okay. Listen, I want everybody in your audience, listen carefully, my darling. Phil is not special. I am not special. You can do what we do. We are all wired like the same house plan, right? Mm-hmm. So all you have to do is learn how to flip your circuit breaker. Mm-hmm. And there's a particular book that I learned with that is still in publication, and I recommend to all my students. And that is a book called Opening to Channel, and it's by Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer. It is a book that teaches you how to stay safe, how to ground, center, and shield, how to talk to your guides, how to ask their names when you know that it's really your guide, how to welcome them. It is a great beginning book, and I highly recommend it. You do not want to go messing with this stuff, especially with the craziness and violence in the world today, which is reflected on the astral. You want to make sure you know how to ground, center, and shield and keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
So learn to do that first.
Yeah, because I meant tell a lot of people you can open it, but just like any type of tool, if you misuse it, you're gonna get the consequences, the karma, if you will, the bad stuff out of it. And that's something you don't want when learning how to open your third eye and everything like that. So, I mean, I've had people want me to teach them how to do it, but I tell them it's no quick, easy process. I mean, I have my own steps of how I help people to unlock that ability, if you will, and everything like that. And I use meditation, breathing exercises, cutting out sounds. Like I'll tell people, and again, for those listening, this is no easy process. It's not a quick fix. So don't think going out doing this and thinking you can automatically unlock that ability. But what I do a lot of times is I'll sit out. Even when I lived out in California, I lived in a country area, so it was pretty quiet. It's kind of hard to do in the city, but but I would sit outside, listen to like the wind blowing, the birds chirping, other sounds of nature. And I would sit out there, close my eyes, and meditate and breathe. And I would start to work like once every day, cut out like one sound and just cut it out completely of hearing it until I got to the point where I did not hear anything. But again, this was not a single day. This was over weeks and weeks of learning how to do that. Look,
it's like trying to play the piano. Maybe you have some incredible talent, and eventually you're going to be another Elton John. But even he went to, I think, the Royal Academy of Music or whatever in England, and he had to learn to play scales, and he had to do his exercises because that's what helped him to be good and to let his talent flower. You might be the next Edgar Casey, but if you don't ground, center, shield, keep notes, I got this intuition, this is what I did about it, this is whether it was right or wrong. It is like learning any skill. And the key is to treasure it. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get it right every time the first time. But every time you do get a good hit, you look up at your guys and you say, thank you. This is what I was hoping for. Make sure they know that you want them on your team.
Yeah. Because, I mean, when I started out in the paranormal field, I made a mistake. I was with a group of people and they decided, let's go to a haunted location. But they used the Ouija board. Now, I tell people the board is not bad itself. It's just a tool. It's the intent that you put into it. But I was still new to my abilities, kind of. And even though I had the ability since 5, but I was in my high school days, and I wasn't really, before that, and I wasn't really thinking about the abilities, thinking I'm going to do anything with it. And I allowed something dark in. Well, it took me about 5 years to get rid of that dark entity, but it took me all that time to learn how to surround myself with a white light, to get rid of this, to strengthening my third eye to where I was protected when I go into a location and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean...
Well,
okay.
It's important that you do that. I admit that I'm not particularly fond of Ouija boards because most people do not respect them. Mm-hmm. So the way I explain it to people is if you play with a Ouija board and you don't know how to ground center and shield, that's like throwing open your door in a strange neighborhood and yelling free beer. You do not know who's out there, but they heard you and they're coming. And yes, Jane Roberts got Seth, and Esther Hicks got Abraham. It's very true that good, honest spirits can come through a Ouija board. Mm. But I have had to personally deal with 2 hysterical teenagers who, when they opened up the board and put their hands on the planchet without any preparation and said, who's there, what they got spelled backwards very fast was, I have an axe and I'm here to kill you. Trust me, that was not their Uncle Danny.
Yeah.
And, people say, oh, it's in the toy department. How dangerous could it be? Well, when they do that, I'd look in my audience and I'd say, all right, somebody here got a child or a grandchild under 10. Raise your hand. Somebody raise their hand and say, you. What's the kid's name? Joshy. How old is Joshy? Joshy's 8. Fine. I say, so Joshy comes to you and says, Grandma, I got all A's on my report card, and you said I could pick out a new toy. Let's go. And he drags you to the toy department, and he points you at a box that says, My First Chainsaw. It's in the toy department. Are you going to let him play with it by himself? No, of course you're not.
Yeah.
The same thing with a Ouija board.
Yeah, and like I said, it's the intent that you put into it. I mean, a lot of people think they have good intention, but when they open that doorway, they don't think to close that doorway. And that doorway, if it stays open, it allows the darker side of things to come through. And they're not protected, and it's going to attach to them, it's going to follow them, and that's one thing, because like I said, I don't endorse the Ouija board or anything, just because I know what it can do. But that's why I give out that warning, like, it's a tool, just like using a
crystal ball or tarot card.
Yeah, or a digital recorder, I mean, or a spirit box. I mean, you're going to get voices coming through from the spirit world, but if you allow that dark, or if you got any negativity in you, it's going to open that doorway to allow that darker stuff to come through. So it's all the intent that you put into it.
That's right. When something has a reputation, you put all that energy and the thought form into it, it's going to hold that. It's like, let's go to Santa Claus. Everybody has wonderful things to think about Santa Claus. And so the energy around that thought form is benevolent. But there are so many people who are scared of Ouija boards that the lower level entities that hang out at the corner of Akashic and Karma are attracted to Ouija boards. And they see you and they go, hey, Sid, let's mess with that one, because you don't know how to ground center and shield and protect yourself. Mm-hmm. That's the dangerous part about Ouija boards. Not the board itself, but how they have been thought about and the fact that it will draw the negative entities for those reasons.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we'll be right back with my guest, Corbie Mitleid, as we continue down the psychic yellow brick road after the short commercial break, and we'll talk more about psychic abilities. We'll be right back.
Do you have a talk radio, Facebook Live, or YouTube show and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in different fields, and you can find the ones that are just right for your show. That's radioguestlist.com. Sign up today. It's free.
To advertise on Talk in the Night, send an email to talkinthe.night@outlook.com. Talk in the Night has plans to fit your budget. Get your product or business heard around the world by the Talk in the Night listening audience. Plans include 30-second spots and banner ads on the show's website and mentioned on the social media sites. So get your product or business heard around the world today. Shop the Talk in the Night merch store today and pick up one of the many products with 9 different designs to choose from. The store has men's and women's apparel, drinkware, houseware, and accessories. Pick up a t-shirt, coffee mug, or anything else on there and support the show today. Go to talkinthe.night.com to find a link to the merch store.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, head pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to surrender, but darling, you were meant to survive. With every start, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time in your head. With every start.
And now, back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Corbie Mitleid, as we continue down the Psychic Yellow Brick Road. And before the break, we were talking about Ouija boards, and I want to mention real quick before we get back into the show, I'm paying attention to the radar because we are under a tornado watch until 2 a.m. here in Fort Worth. So if I'm watching closely, we got a stronger cell headed this way, but it's probably still about an hour out. So during the next commercial break, I'll be I'll constantly be monitoring it. So if we have to cut the show short, we'll bring her back on at a later time. But I just want to let everybody know everything's fine for right now. So I want to let everybody know that. All right. So before the break, we were talking about Ouija boards, and and people's abilities and not knowing how to ground themselves. And I want to mention a person that was on a ghost tour at the Oman House in Beverly Hills, and there was a house next to him that was there on the night of the murders. Well, his house had that light energy, whereas that house that was there on the night of the murders had that darker energy. And somebody that was new to their abilities came out of the house and felt sick to their stomach. They just, they did not know how to ground themselves. So what I did is, when I noticed they were not feeling good and stuff like that because of the energy, I was like, I want you to do something for me. Stand up, close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths, and as you're doing that, imagine the brightest white light that you can imagine. And she did so, and automatically she started feeling better because, one, she was out of the darker energy, but two, she had that protection around her. And of course, I projected some of my white light onto her just to help her out. But what you were talking about is people don't know how to ground themselves, and when you're new to the abilities, it's hard to understand that.
It really is. It really is. But if you want to find the joy in reaching across the veil. You're going to learn to do that. It just keeps you safe. So let us explain what this is. Grounding is just what it sounds like. Okay? Think about what it means outside the metaphysical realm when someone says the person is really grounded. It means they're steady and stable and present. And for the novice light worker, being grounded is all that. So, standard exercise, sitting, feet on the ground, arms and legs crossed, or standing with feet slightly apart and finding your balance. Then, imagine roots growing out of your feet, going right down to the center of the earth, because Mother Earth will welcome those roots, and she'll help to stabilize you, and she will take any negative energy in you that you want her to transmute and clear. Centering is the second step. That's when you bring the energy that you're pulling up from the earth and you hold it in your physical center, your heart, your solar plexus, depending on where you really feel it. Centering is the process of being completely present in your body. It's being aware of your boundaries and your senses and your wholeness. And deep, even breathing helps you. Now, this is the big one, kids, and this is shielding. Shielding is not going to help you avoid being hit by a bus. It's not what it does.
Yeah.
But it does protect you from distracting energies, other people's negativity, or the general yuck of the world today, as well as the nasties out there. Okay? I usually give myself an energy egg. Imagine yourself in an egg or a bubble of white light that stretches at least 2 to 3 feet beyond your actual body. If you want a real-life example, think of a hamster in a hamster ball running around the living room floor, say from Max the cat. That's what you should see for your shield.
Yeah.
And that will keep you safe.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of people don't think about that. They think they look at fantasy television or movies and think, oh, that's cool. Even like me on tornado chasing, I love to do it, but I don't think about the dangerous part of it a lot of times.
Yeah.
And that can get you in trouble if you're not aware of your surroundings, if you're not aware of what you're allowing in.
Yes, absolutely right. People watch Twister. Remember the old movie Twister from the 90s? And, it's that dangerous and more. Don't expect that you're going to be able to wrap a little chain around yourself and be kept from sucking into a tornado. I mean, that was a little bit of Hollywood. Well, it's the same thing with protection. Do not assume that Glinda the Good Witch is going to just go bonk with her magic wand and you're going to be safe. Okay? Work it.
All right. So let's get into something else here. Actually, let me ask this question just in case we have to cut the show short. I have a listener in the show, in the chat, that says, how can we, and I'm pretty sure you answered that with the question, but I want to get your thoughts on it. How can we better ground ourselves?
Imagination is where it goes. It really is. I want you to think about, dial your weight up to 675 pounds. Feel yourself sink into your chair, sink into the earth. Imagination is what makes the biggest and the greatest metaphysicians. If you can literally feel your feet reaching down to the center of the earth, you are grounded. You understand that Mother Earth is reaching up to grab your feet for you and hold you steady, the way a mother holds the hands of a little child learning to walk. There is so much benevolent energy that wants to work with you. Tap into that. Feel the solidity under your feet or under your butt in the chair. And you will find yourself grounded.
Okay, thank you for that answer. All right, so now there are people out there that will say that psychic abilities are fake. James Randi comes to mind. What do you say to people like those?
I look at them and smile and say, thank you for sharing. You may think that if you wish. And then I go away because I know I'm good. And you cannot be full-time in this business as long as I have been and been a fake. Mm-hmm. I have too many testimonials. I have too many solid clients. And I have too many things that even weird me out when I get them. Mm-hmm. You know? Perfect example. One of the things I'm good at is past lives. Now, I don't do regressions. I'm not a hypnotherapist. But I do retrievals. You tell me this is the situation I have, and I'm able to go up to the Akashic Records and pull it down. Mm-hmm. Example, woman came to me and said, I'm really worried about my son. He's 29. He won't live more than a mile from me. He asks me about every single thing he's going to do. I'm really worried he doesn't have enough courage. What's going on? So it took me about 5 seconds, and I say, okay, it's 1944. I see him on Utah Beach. He's one of the guys who stormed the beach, but he's got a pretty badly mangled leg. You're his commanding officer. You're dragging him over a dune. You take some shrapnel, but you both get out of there and you both live. Mm-hmm. And I open my eyes, and she looks at me. She's very pale. She says, can you see my rank? I said, yeah, you were a sergeant. She says, he's called me Sarge since he was 3 years old, and we never knew where that came from.
Wow.
Well, how am I going to know that? There's no way.
Yeah.
So when you get things like that, and this woman came to me at a psychic fair. I'd never seen her before, so there's no way I could have done any studying.
Yeah.
That has to be metaphysical ability. Mm. I am the tool for spirit. It ain't me. I'm just the tool. And that's one of the reasons I know it's right, because my ego is not involved at all.
And like I mentioned to a lot of people, I think I have this question later on down in my list, but I'm going to talk about now, is a lot of people, they either think they're fake or they're either going to be 100% right. And I tell people, no psychic medium is ever going to be 100% right, because if we were, we'd be winning the lotto every single damn time, and there would be a shitload of us, the millionaires.
I know. I tell them, don't ask me about the lottery numbers, me first, and if your psychic's not driving a Lexus, how do you know they know? But the most important thing is even the best of us are only 85% accurate. The only one 100% accurate is God, and he's not doing psychic fairs or phone readings.
Yeah. He's not coming down and saying, okay, this is, and telling you every single dang thing. No, I mean, because like I said, we're only good as the spirit guides or angels or whatever you want to call them is going to allow us to receive that message and give it to you.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. Now, about spirit guides. My understanding is, we all have particular guardian angel or a couple, and they're with us from birth to death, and they kind of have our names in the back of their tunics like camp tags I belong to. But our guides change as we change and grow. They're like teachers. So you wouldn't have the same teacher, kindergarten to PhD. I may find a guide for you today, which is different than the one you had 5 years ago. And in 5 years from now, you may have yet a different guide. It is because they want to help you where you are in your life. Mm-hmm. So if I get a guide and 5 years later somebody else gets a different guide, doesn't mean either one of us is wrong. Just means you're growing.
Yeah. Now, I do want to ask you about, remote viewing and past lives and everything like that. I'll start out with past lives because, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, that's hoo-ha and stuff like that. It's not real. But I've seen so many stories where people have mentioned, and you mentioned about the one person being a sergeant in 44 and in the Army and everything like that. But I've seen stories where small kids mention about a person that they have never met, a person that even probably their family has never met. But when they start explaining it, and then people actually go back and research it, and see that everything they're talking about is actually true. I mean, there is some kind of I don't know how to explain it really, but I mean, a lot of people think, okay, when we die, we're going up to heaven. That's it. Me, I think I've lived several past lives. I think my soul age is over 600 years old, so I lost count a long time ago. But but I've lived multiple past lives, and I wanted to get what you thought on the whole past life thing.
Well, I do have Bible thumpers come up to me and says, well, the Bible says we only live once, and that is the Word of God. And I say, well, you're right, because they are. And here's how it can be both ways. The soul comes back over and over and over again. Phil, Corbie, one and done. This particular recipe of a personality will never be back on Earth again. So, yes, reincarnation is both one life and dozens or hundreds of them.
Yeah, and our bodies are only the vessel.
Right. We don't remember them unless it's necessary. What do I mean by that? If you're a janitor in Des Moines and all of a sudden you realize, yeah, you really were Napoleon Bonaparte, do you think you're going to be okay with slogging a mop for the rest of your life? No. I wasn't Napoleon. So the lives are hidden from us unless we need them. Now, with me, I have a past life from a pilot in World War I Germany. Now, I grew up in a Jewish family. I was terrified of Germans because of what my parents learned in World War II. I couldn't stand to hear the language. I had nightmares about them. But I went with a friend to a place called the Old Rhinebeck Aerodrome in Rhinebeck, New York. It is literally a flying museum. They had planes from 1909 Blérios to Barnstormers from the 30s. But the day we went was their World War I show. And, yeah, American planes and French planes and Italian planes. Yeah, big deal. Boom. All of a sudden, they have a reproduction Albatross D5 and a Fokker JR-1. That's the triplane that the Red Baron flew. And as I watched them fly, there was this soundless explosion in my heart and head. And I thought two things. There's a story behind that plane, and I flew that one. All of a sudden, within 48 hours, I wanted to speak German. I loved hearing it. I recognized pictures of the pilots in the book. And when I finally did a past life regression, I saw who I was. Didn't recognize him. But when I was flipping through books with pictures of the pilots, there he was. And people look at that picture and look at me and they go, oh, is that your grandfather? You look so much like him. There are things I know about his life. There are expressions that I use. There are resonances in my life and his that are too weird for words.
Yeah, now like me, I've done past life regression, and I think the last couple of past lives have been either Old West or Civil War age, because I mean I have a fascination with both. I love the history of the Old West, the Civil War, and everything like that. I mean, even in my family history, somewhere down the line, I'm related to Robert E. Lee. So, I mean, but I know for a fact that I have a real strong fascination with the Old West, more than I do the Civil War. But so I think I'm trying to remember the past life regression, but I think I was more of somebody that would be a high influential person in the Old West, because I saw like the fancy vest like a gambler would wear, or a lawman would wear, or something like that. I mean, I didn't see no badge, but I didn't look too much into it. And so I know it was somewhere there. Now, whether that was the actual last one or not, but that was the one that came up.
Well, remember that life is a web, not a line. So it could be that that's your next life. All of P-brains don't understand time. We don't. We think it's a line. But some people think that lives happen simultaneously. You never know. Now, one of the things that people need to look at, what are your phobias in this life? What are your obsessions?
Yeah.
You can probably trace them back. Now, with me,
Corbie,
I knew at age 13.
Corbie, I'm going to give you give me a moment. Keep talking, but I'm going to step away from the computer for a second to just let my cat in because it started to rain. So keep
Absolutely.
talking.
Save the cat. Okay. So, I knew that in my life, I did not want to have children. I knew at age 13, I was born without the mommy gene, that the idea of being pregnant was terrifying to me. And I don't know why. I mean, my mother was fine with having babies, and I had friends that had babies. But what I did when I looked at my own past lives is the life just before this one. I was an Italian-American in Chicago and had been messing around with my husband's best friend. My husband was a salesman and was on the road all the time. So I had the baby. The baby was stillborn, so I had it in the hospital. It was one of those Catholic hospitals run by nuns back in the 40s. Well, I was very upset, and I cried. I talked to the nuns. And well, the nuns went and they talked to each other and said, well, God has taken the innocent child to his bosom, so that's fine. But the woman is sinful. So when I got childbed fever, which we call sepsis, they decided that that was God's will, and I got no care, and I died in filth and agony. So in this life, in order to heal that trauma, the soul decided we are not having children. Frankly, I was too busy raising myself from a dysfunctional childhood. I have never regretted not having children, and understanding why from the life before makes it just doubly okay. I'm that wonderful aunt, the crazy aunt that comes in, fills your kids full of nonsense for 2 weeks, and then I leave. At least it gets to you. You know, and give me the kids when they're teenagers. That's when you want to just like put them in a barrel with a bunghole. That's when I love them.
Yeah.
So that's how I do my thing for the next generation. But I knew not to have kids.
Yeah. Now, like me, I never really see myself with any real fear, just because I've done some stupid stuff when I was younger. Climb on the back of a 2,000-pound bull, chase down tornadoes, climb the highest point in the tree without a safety net when I was real young. I was always considered the daredevil of my family. And then, of course, working as a person that can do cleansing of darker entities and darker energy, I know not to go into a location with that fear, because if I show any point of fear, even as grounded as I am, they're going to see that one little opening, that one little weakness, and be like, all right, there's an opening. So I try not to have any fear of doing anything. Now, I might have a little bit of fear of heights to a certain extent. Well, not so much height. A lot of people think it's the fear of height. It's actually the fear of falling. But but that's probably about it. And even with that little bit of fear, I still want to go out and jump out of a perfectly good plane to skydive. So
everybody picks their own toys, so that sounds like that's yours.
Yeah. All right. So real quick, because we got 5 minutes before the break, I want to ask you, because we talked about past lives, and of course I had another question in the chat. This person says, I use my imagination for remote viewing too, and let me scroll down here. Let me go back to it. And things like that. What are your thoughts? And she said, what's her thoughts on remote viewing?
Remote viewing is fascinating. I do not do it. I cannot do it. It is not in my wheelhouse. So I am not someone to ask about that. And frankly, my friend, that's how you know someone is a professional intuitive. When they admit this is not something that they do.
Yeah.
For instance, there are a lot of people who ask me serious health questions, and I tell them it's not in my wheelhouse. But I send them to the best medical intuitive in the U.S. that I know, whose name is Stacy Wells. Stacy has seen brain tumors that doctors have missed, has caught cancer that doctors have missed. She did that for me. She can literally look into the DNA of the body. But that's not me. Yeah. On the other hand, you need past lives, spirit guides, you want to talk to dead Aunt Mabel, you need a tarot reading. That's my specialty, and that'll do for you.
Yeah.
So no psychic will know everything.
Yeah, now, see, I tend to like to learn about different things. Of course, like you said, no psychic is ever going to have all the abilities, but I do have quite a bit of them. Then, rather than call myself a psychic or a medium, I tend to use the word hyper-empath. Just because I can read people more than I can with seeing and communicating with the spirit world, even though I can do that. But I tend to, like at the start of the show, I mentioned about seeing the path of Hurricane Katrina before I even hit Florida. I tend to read people, read things like that. It's probably my strongest ability.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you go for. That is what Spirit gave you to be God's head, hands, and heart on earth. Because if we're psychics and we do the work, that's what we're here for. We're in service.
All right. So I want to ask you real quick before the break, because it's a question in the chat. What is your strongest abilities?
My strongest ability, I would say, is past lives, because I can get you details. And nobody reads tarot as fast as I do, my darlings. I've read for 50 years. I'm a certified tarot master, and I can do deep dish multiple spreads that will give you bookloads of information.
All right. Well, let's get back into all this, and I'm going to keep paying attention to the radar because, I mean, we're getting a little bit heavier rain, but it's still not in the red or the purple, so I'm constantly paying attention to that. But yeah, it tends to flood outside my apartment when it comes down heavy like this. I guess they did a poor job on planning on the angles of the sidewalk and everything to drain the water too well. But I want to talk about more psychic abilities and different things after we come back with my guest, Corbie Mitleid, as we continue down the psychic yellow brick road. We'll be back after this short commercial break.
They never showed me how to even open my arms. I've been dreaming that I'm flying. I've seen the city through the clouds. It's oh so small. Every now and then I'm falling. Say something, say something. Blood rushing to ease the pain. Say something, don't leave me hanging. Say something, don't leave again.
The weather is getting warmer and people are out and about. Well, if you love ghost hunting, now is the time to pick up some new gear. GhostStop.com has a wide variety of equipment to choose from, and one of those items is Blue Buddy. He's back. The talking bear every investigator wants on their team. click on the Go Stop banner ad at the top of the show's website and pick up your Boo Buddy today. Go to spring.com and sign up to create your own design or choose from a design from one of the many creators on there. Spring has ways to integrate your store on social media, custom stores, and they have digital and physical products. While you're there, check out the Talk in the Night merch store. To get started with Spring today, click on the banner ad on the Talk in the Night website. Go to the show's website and click on the links for each of my guests and purchase a book or other product that they may be promoting. Without them, there would be no Talk in the Night. Whether you're interested in the paranormal, conspiracy, technology, health, relationships, or any other topic the show covers, my guests have something for you. Check it out today on talkingthenight.com.
All my years on the run, chasing hell, drinking devil's blood. I never caught a fire that could ever slow me down.
To call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night or by phone at 817-717-1280. Now back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Corbie Mitleid, as we continue down the psychic yellow brick road. And before the break, we were talking about abilities and what our strongest abilities are. And it's going to lead me into my next question. Before I do that, I want to mention the phone lines are open if you want to call into the show by Skype. Paranormal, Talk in the Night, not Paranormal Phil, sorry, changed that a long time ago, or by phone at 817-717-1280, or on Spreaker if you sign up for a free account. It don't cost anything, and you don't have to record anything. You can enter the chat and chat with me, ask a question there as well. So I want to get into this question related to abilities is, what can psychics do and can't do?
Okay. What we cannot do. We cannot win you the lottery. We cannot force someone to move. We cannot get you a job you don't deserve. That opens you up to what I call the Madam Hoo-Has and the Swami Swalandas. Now, the reason why I wrote this book, The Psychic Yellow Brick Road, is 15 years ago I was doing a big psychic fair up in Toronto, like 250 booths. And there was a woman who was walking down the aisle, and she was looking at the booth. And across from me was one of the fake gypsies. So this fake gypsy runs out, grabs the woman's arm, and says, "Oh, you don't need to pay $30, $40, $50. I need your palm for 10. Come." Drags the woman into a booth. 20 minutes later, we see this woman leave, crying hysterically. And we go up and we say, "Are you all right? What happened?" And apparently the psychic said, "Oh, you have a family curse." "How many in your family?" "4. You have dog?" $50 every family member, 25 per dog, he small, we fix. And told the woman if she didn't burn 400 specially blessed candles at the Roman Catholic Church, I'd bless real good. Only $1 candle. Her entire family was going to die in a car accident in 2 weeks. Guys, that's a scam. That's a fake.
Yeah,
Don't
just like that.
ever fall for it.
Yeah, just like that story that I mentioned at the start of the show with Lamar Keene back in the 60s and 70s. And just kind of like just conned them out of thousands of dollars just to scam them. And it'd be like when they were stumped, he was stumped, he faked a headache And that should have been a key sign right there that something's wrong here. That, but he was able to find that information and dupe him into believing what he was saying. And again, like we talked about at the start, is no psychic is ever going to be 100% right. I mean, we might not get messages from your loved ones like you want. It might be from a spirit guide. It might be from an angel. It might be from somebody else coming through. So, like, when I have done kind of readings to help out another psychic that I know really well, and kind of pull some of the spirits off of her, because when they see that light, that opening, they tend to flock to you. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but they tend to flock to you. So you can become overwhelmed. And so I was like, let me go down, because they were doing a seance. And after they finished that, I was like, let me go down, pull some of the spirits off of her, so that way she's not overwhelmed by multiple spirits trying to get out their message to all these people. And I was like, so I did a reading, and I automatically, I wasn't getting words, I was getting images. And one thing I saw was a red cross. And I was like, is your family in the medical field or having health issues or something like that? Because it was just that image. So it was up to me to interpret what that spirit wanted me to see and get the message out. And turns out that person, somebody in their family drove an ambulance, so there was connection to that Red Cross.
Yep.
But like I said, a lot of times they're not going to give us actual words. We're not going to be able to say, this is what they're saying. They're going to sometimes give us images, and it's up to us to interpret that meaning.
That's exactly right. You know, when I do mediumship, I do it a little differently because I don't just go fishing. It's too easy to give you vague stuff.
Yeah.
I get your dog tags. For instance, my father, Jerome Richard Dorkin, who died in 2001 at the age of 80, that's who I want to speak to. Notice, that tells me nothing about them. But my guys immediately start playing charades with me. Literally, my hands move. If they go to my mouth like I'm smoking a cigarette, this person smoked. If my hand goes over my mouth, they were intubated on oxygen, having trouble breathing at the end of their life. And when you do this, that can give you some real specifics. 2 examples. There was a woman who wanted to speak to her father-in-law. All of a sudden, I feel myself miming a pool cue. She said, he taught me how to play pool. There was a woman in Canada, wanted to speak to her grandfather. I feel myself saluting. Now, Americans salute with the palm down. Brits and Canadians, the palm is out. The grandfather was acknowledging that she had just graduated from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Academy 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
See, that's not stuff that you can research. And it's not, it's vague, it's Aunt Laura and she loves you and here's a rose.
Yeah.
And I'm almost fussier than my clients than they are, because I don't want to fool them. I want absolutes before I'll say, yes, this is the person you want.
Yeah, because, I hate asking fishing questions and everything like that. That's why I don't really do those type of readings, because like you said, on abilities, not everybody's going to have that ability, and that's not one of my strongest suits. My strongest suit is, like I said, reading people, feeling the energy, if you will, even of Mother Nature, because I'm a Capricorn, so I'm an earth sign, so I'm more grounded that way. And that's why, like, seeing disasters, natural disasters, and Mother Nature thing are more of my abilities.
In the old days, they would have called you a weather witch.
Yeah. I do have witch ancestry, and also I'm Wiccan myself, so I'm a witch anyways.
There you go.
Now, you talked about that person having that gypsy grab her by the arm and everything like that, and giving her all this fake information. Now, what do you say to people that are maybe going to a psychic or going to one of these fairs and everything like that, and or somebody has a fear of speaking to one of them, they're feeling dreadful and everything like that, feeling like they're going to get wrong information or something? What are some of the misconceptions people have about going to a psychic?
Well, one of the things I teach people is how to get the right one. And so let's take a look at going to a psychic fair. Well, you don't know anybody from Adam's house yet. Well, you have to be like good puppies. What do I mean? Well, first you got to go in and do your walkies. And that's why you go in and you just walk around and look at the booths and just see what's there. Then you got to get paper trained. What does that mean? Anybody who looks interesting, you go and you pick up a brochure or a rack card, because we all have them. Then you're going to sit down, because there are always tables and seats for the public. And you're going to look through, and there are going to be 3 or 4 people that feel like, yeah, maybe these guys are interesting. So then you're going to go talk to them. If the psychic is busy, talk to their front people. We all have front people. But remember, we can tell you we're wonderful, and that doesn't count. And we hire our front people to say they love us. My first person as a front person was my friend Laura. Laura was my husband's office manager at the museum he ran Monday through Friday. Do you think she's going to dismiss his museum director on the weekend? Probably not. So what you want to do is you want to go to our testimonial books. We all have them on the table. And these are comments from people that have had readings. Flip some pages. Are we good? Are we kind? Are we funny? Are we accurate? Do we have specialties? Children, dogs, dead people. Would they come back? But the very most important thing, I can't stress it enough, is go to your own heart chakra. What are you feeling? Trust that. If the psychic doesn't feel like they have a brain in their head, they really care about what they're doing, or they're going to give you good information, don't go there no matter how cool the wiki-woo looks on the table.
Yeah,
and
trust your gut, trust your intuition.
That's right. Trust what your heart says. But realize we all have different manners, like different bedside manners too. You know?
Yeah.
Some of them are what I call glurpy purple with angels, and real sweet and lovely. And then there's me. I'm from New York. I'll hit you upside the head with a glue brick. Both of us are good psychics, but you have to choose the one that you're going to be most comfortable with.
Yeah. Now, speaking of choosing who you're going to feel comfortable, what are your thoughts on people that have questions while seeing psychics, and do you believe those questions are important?
Absolutely. Somebody sits in front of me and says, I'm not going to say anything, and you better read me. That's like trying to climb Everest in sneakers. There's no grip.
Yeah.
Now, if you sit down with me, the first thing I'm going to say to you is, what is the most important thing you want to walk out of here knowing today? Because as fast as I am, even if you're with me for half an hour, and I go fast, I might not get to what you want, in which case you'll say, oh, she didn't tell me anything. She wasn't any good. So if it's career, say career. If it's my kids, say it's kids. Now, here's an example with tarot. I do multiple card deep dish readings. So if you say career, I'm going to say, okay, we have 3 possibilities. You want to stay where you are, change jobs, or open your own place. That's not fishing, because each one of those questions has a different multiple spread. Let's say you say, I want to open up my own crystal shop. Great. I'm not going to throw 3 cards and say, wait until October and fire the redhead. I'm going to pull a card for you, a card for the energy around the business, a card for the brick and mortar location to look for, how to market it, clients, competition, staff, finances, what you need to know, and best possible outcome. My job is not to say, yes, it'll work, or no, it isn't. My job is to say, here are your opportunities and how to grab them. Here's the tough stuff. Here's how to get through it or around it. Give you the tools to empower you to go make that business rock and roll. Okay. That's the difference between a fortune teller and an intuitive counselor. And I'm an intuitive counselor.
All right. I want to let everybody know that we're going to probably end this show a little bit early, in about 15 minutes, because I am looking at the radar, and it looks like there is some rotation to the west. It might pass to the south of us, but I want to be on the safe side. And of course, I live in Tornado Alley, so there's always that possibility. But
Phil, can I be honest?
Sure.
I've been watching the Weather Channel on silent, and I've been watching that and thinking, does Phil know what's ahead? So thank you. I will stop worrying about you. You have enough sense.
No, I make, like I said, I'm more in tune to Mother Nature. And of course, when something like this, the big storms and everything like that, I'm going to make sure that I'm focused on that as well as other things. I mean, I tend to do a little too many things at once sometimes, but I wanted to mention that to my listeners. Now, I do have a question here from one of my listeners. She says, I have a problem with speech communication sometimes. Would that be to work on my throat chakra? And I'm not
Could be working on your throat chakra. It could be a stammer, a stutter, a aphasia, whatever it is. Sometimes going and doing a past life retrieval so we can see what that is for you. Because remember, there's no bad karma or good karma. There are lessons we come down to learn. 5 things: healing, service, contrast, unbalanced energy, healing of beliefs. So between looking at the past lives and working on the energetic throat chakra, we might be able to do quite a bit for that. I'd have to work with you personally. I can't guarantee. But if you've got someone where you are that can work with you on it, what harm could it do? I say go for it.
Yeah. Now, I want to, before I ask you, like I said, we're going to cut the show a little bit short, but I always like to ask my guests a devil's advocate question, just because I know there's people that are going to be the skeptical kind of person, so I want to fuel their fire a little bit, if you will. So how do you know that the spirits or that you're talking to and getting these messages from is someone who has passed and not some demon or dark entity?
Well, it's very simple. There are some very specific things that a spirit guide or angel will not do. And if you hear these kinds of things from that little voice in your head, put it on the do not use shelf, because it's not a spirit guide or an angel. They will never chastise you in a sharp or mean fashion and put you down. They will never pump up your ego at the expense of someone else. They will never try to guilt you into doing something. They will never encourage you to do something that is illegal, immoral, harmful, or against your highest good, something your gut knows is wrong or not in your best interest. They are not going to tell you to buy the red car or the blue car. They don't care. They care about your spiritual growth. So that's the key. No, they're not always going to say that you're wonderful and sweet and perfect.
Yeah.
They may be strong and say, this is something that you must look at.
All right.
But they're not going to say, do this or else.
Okay, so let's start to wrap things up here. Like I said, we're going to end shortly, so I apologize to my listeners, but safety is key.
Yep.
Let's tell the listeners a little bit about the book that you have. And people can find that book linked or banner ad at the top of the Talk of the Night website, linked to Corbie's website. They'll take you there. You can find out all about her and the book and everything. But tell people a little bit about the book in like a 30-second speech type thing.
Okay. It's just like you may go to an art museum and you love oil paintings, but you don't want to learn to paint. You don't need to learn to be a psychic, but this will keep you safe working in the psychic world. I teach you boot camp, how to prepare for a great psychic session, when a reading won't help. I give you the ins and outs of a general session, what to watch out for, talk a little bit about working with angels and spirit guides and mediumship and channeling, and then give you some resources to look at. Read that book, and you will stay safe because you will not fall for the fake.
All right. And where can people find out more information about you and the book? Of course, your website, but is there any other source that they can reach you at and find that information?
Oh, Phil, they can't avoid me. You go to Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, Medium, Facebook. All of it is under Corbie Mitleid. I'm all over the internet.
Okay, and that's where they can get a hold of you if they want a reading or something like that?
CorbieMitleid.com, that's right.
Okay, and again, like I said, for my listeners, it is linked up at the top of the Talk in the Night website. There's a banner ad with her, and it says pick up a copy of Psychic Yellow Brick Road. I forget exactly what it said here. Let me get to it real quick. Because I do this for all my guests. It says pick up a copy of Psychic Yellow Brick Road today. Click on that image, and it'll take you right to her website. Also, under tonight's show, I probably won't change that till tomorrow morning, but under tonight's show and all the information, there is a link to her website. You can click on that as well. So I want to thank everybody for staying with me, and again, with the show being shortened because of the weather, I want to apologize, but again, safety is important. So tomorrow night, it should be clear, tomorrow night we're going to be joined by my guest Edgar Scott as we talk about living in a dystopian world. We're going to get into, we're going to talk about his novel that explores the world where people, by choice, birth, or punishment, relinquish the rights to their physical body, a fantasy world of endless indulgence. And then we'll get into possibly, are we living in a dystopian world right now and don't know it? But we'll get into all that tomorrow night. Again, if you're in Texas, be safe out there. I know I'm in Fort Worth, and there are some thunderstorms. We're under a tornado watch. I haven't seen any tornado warning images pop up, but again, I want to be safe. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in, putting up with the show. Thank you, Corbie, for coming on the show once again. And I will try to bring you on another time later on and continue this talk because it was enjoyable.
It was great. You be safe.
I will. So until tomorrow night, when I welcome my guest Edgar Scott to the show, talking living in a dystopian world, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talking the Night. Darkness has fallen. Turn on the radio, and you hear him talking. Listening to what he has to say. All about paranormal and all of the things. When he sounds off, you can